giving them regular updates on what we are doing. Next slide, please. The mutual evaluation assessment is normally done in two phases. There's an assessment that is done in regard to technical compliance, and this is basically an assessment of existing legal and regulatory framework of a country. And then the second phase is effectiveness, because you could have the best laws, but in terms of applying those laws, the question of effectiveness comes in. Those are the ratings that Kenya got in that assessment. We only compliant in 2 of the 40 recommendations, which are part of the methodology. And 1 recommendation, we were largely compliant. The remaining 26 plus 11, we were either partially or non-compliant, and that's below 50%. So basically, we are looking at a score of 3 out of 40. That is a very, very poor score. On the effectiveness, it's normally assessed over against 11 thematic areas. Low being the lowest, you can score, and then there's medium, and then there's high. Out of the 11, we got 9 lows. So basically, we only got 2 moderates, so it's 2 out of 11 again, and that was not very good. So based on those findings, or other ratings, the Financial Action Task Force placed Kenya under an enhanced review process for a period of 1 year, in which we was required to address all those deficiencies. That observation period lapsed on the 17th of October, and then we were given 1 month to write a report to the FATF, which is submitted on the 17th of this month. That's precisely last Friday. What are the highlights of these findings? The first thematic area is an area of understanding of AML CFT risks. And the evaluation found out that the scope of our national risk assessment, which we did carry out in 2021, did not assess certain specific areas that are contemporary money laundering frauds. One of them is the issue of virtual assets and virtual asset service providers, basically the whole issue of crypto space. The issue of legal persons and legal arrangements, basically this is the area of trusts and other arrangements. The issue of terrorism financing, which was not adequately covered, and our own risk understanding of how non-profit organizations are vulnerable to terrorism financing. The second thematic area was the question of international cooperation, in which Kenya authorities were found not to sought international cooperation, mainly for predicate offenses, or rather, we factor in on the predicate offenses. Predicate offenses are the offenses that generate proceeds before you get to the stage of money laundering. Therefore, money laundering and terrorism financing was not being pursued as a policy objective to fight crime. The third thematic area was the issue of supervision, in which supervisory authorities are found not to be implementing risk-based supervision across board. And that is the bottom line when you're looking at supervision of the whole financial sector. You have to do a risk-based approach. The fourth area was the issue of virtual assets, in which virtual assets and virtual assets service providers are not prohibited in the country. We don't have a legal framework, and that we need to put in place a regulatory framework to cover both. The third area, which is a very thorny area, is the issue of beneficial ownership, disclosure of the same in terms of legal arrangements, in terms of legal persons. Basically, those are companies in which reporting entities did not have access to BO information held by the Business Registration Service. Reporting entities are the entities defined in law which are supposed to report suspicion of money laundering. The sixth thematic area is the issue of investigation, in which there was low usage by investigative authorities of financial intelligence from their financial reporting center. Whereas the financial reporting center is able to provide financial intelligence to law enforcement agencies, they are found not to be utilizing the same to pursue money laundering and terrorism financing. And that is tied to the seventh thematic area, in which we are found to have low levels of money laundering investigations, which is not consistent with the country's risk profile. So basically, it's the issue of how many cases are we pursuing vis-a-vis the risk profile of the country. And of course, we find ourselves in a confluence of many economic crime issues in the region. The eighth area was the issue of assets recoveries, in which we were found not to be pursuing assets accordingly, or other proceeds of crime. So asset recoveries comprise a small percentage of the recorded assets subject to recovery, mainly because of the lengthy process of recovery. And the ninth was the issue of a legal gap in the country's legal framework in relation to terrorism financing, which was impeding efforts to fight TF. The 10th area was the issue of our ability to combat terrorism financing, in which a majority of agencies were found to have limited understanding on measures to combat terrorism financing. And the last but not least is the issue of Kenya being able to combat proliferation financing. Proliferation financing basically is a financing of weapons of mass destruction, in which we are found not to have a sound legal framework to implement measures to combat CPF. So what have we done as a country? A number of focused interventions on the deficiencies have been undertaken. One among them, we had an unprecedented review of our legal framework. The Anti-Money Laundering Amendment Act of 2023, which was enacted by Parliament in September, amended 17 sets of legislation covering all relevant sectors for ML CFT for both law enforcement, supervisors, and regulators. And again, that meant that we had to apply for a rating of all the 40, or rather the 37 that we are found out to be compliant. So in essence, the 37 in which we are found out to be compliant, I can confidently say that as a country we have addressed all the 37, and out of the 40 recommendations probably will be among the first in Africa to have a compliant of the 40. The issue of risk understanding on some of the areas that I've mentioned, the issue of virtual assets, terrorism financing, the legal persons and legal arrangements, we were required to carry out an exercise that will inform that understanding. And to that end, we carried out 4 risk assessments, national risk assessments, one covering the issue of virtual assets and the providers, terrorism financing, legal persons and legal arrangements, and the vulnerability of the NPO sector to money laundering and terrorism financing. Out of this also, we have been able to develop, just to improve our domestic operation, a national anti-money laundering, CFT and CPF coordination mechanism, or framework to enhance efficiency and effectiveness of sharing information for investigation and prosecution of money laundering offenses. On the issue of international cooperation, a lot has been done in terms of what we seek beyond our borders, any assets that are suspected to have moved beyond our borders. We have seen an increase of international requests during the period under review, and basically, if we were to quantify that, we are looking at a 115% increment in us requesting for proceeds of crime which have moved outside of Kenya. We have also been able to undertake a number of institutional reforms in which supervisors of financial institutions and designated non-financial businesses and professions have undertaken institutional risk profiling just to inform how they interact with their licensees. We have also been able to develop a number of supervisory tools and conducted inspections on a sectoral risk assessment. And of course, that in itself was able now to inform how we intervene and how we support those sectors to fight money laundering. On the issue of virtual assets and virtual assets providers, the recommendation was that we have to make up our minds on what we want to do with VAs and VASPs. To that end, the National Treasury has given a policy direction for the regulation of VASPs for AML, and CFT, and CPF purposes. Your Excellency, you remember Parliament had to move into that space when WorldCoin came into town and mobilized almost close to 30,000 youth to enroll in the issue of taking up the WorldCoin. And Parliament also made a pronouncement that we need to regulate that space. We are moving forward with the necessary legal reforms to put in place a legal framework that will develop regulation and supervision of that sector. And we've put a target of March this year to have a framework in place. We have also been able to regulate a very, very difficult sector. I think this is something that has been going on for close to 6 years. That's the issue of bringing lawyers and other legal professions within the framework of AML-CFT supervision. There was a case in court which had dragged on for close to 2 years. Government was able to close ranks with the lawyers, and we entered an out-of-court settlement in which we developed a framework that is of its kind in Africa, where the lawyers, as a self-regulatory regulating profession, are also able to regulate themselves for AML-CFT. And the law was passed in September. It will take effect 1st of April. They were given a 6-month moratorium to put in place the necessary structures to address that. Your Excellency, we have also been able to, just following the risk assessment, to issue a number of guidance to reporting institutions, particularly the Financial Reporting Center, being the primary AML-CFT regulator. We have issued circulars to reporting institutions on beneficial ownership. That's pursuant to the outcome of the risk assessment that was done, and also amendment of the law. Terrorism financing preventative measures, just to address how institutions and law enforcement deal with TF and the AML-CFT obligations, and in particular, how to address high-risk sectors that are not currently well regulated. And precisely, we are looking at the real estate sector and the second-hand motor vehicle dealership sector, which is basically we are looking at high volumes where you're able to store value in high value assets which are not well regulated. So basically, all the reporting institutions, all the sectors are now able to regulate. As gatekeepers, they are able to deal with the inherent risks from those sectors. Also, all the regulators have been able to issue guidance on preventative measures, including beneficial ownership, customer due diligence, record keeping, risk-based approach, and the thorny issue of politically exposed persons, of which I am one of them, how we deal with those issues. And again, out of the whole issue of understanding of risks and what we've done, and looking at both the upstream and the downstream of all the actions that we've taken, we stand as the Financial Reporting Center as the center of all this, and we have actually seen an improvement in the understanding, which has also informed our own dissemination. Disseminations are the financial intelligence products that we send to law enforcement, and we've seen between September last year and October this year an increment of 218% in terms of what we send out. And basically, it shows that the interdiction and enforcement levels have really gone up. Next slide, please. Again, Your Excellency, competent authorities have also increased requests for beneficial ownership to facilitate money laundering and terrorism financing investigation and supervision. This is one area that has been very critical. And for those who come from the EU, this is one area that EU has put a lot of emphasis in their regulations and laws. From September last year, when the assessment was done, although it was adopted, we only had 29 requests from law enforcement to BRS for beneficial ownership. As at 31st of December, we had close to 300 requests. And that shows that law enforcement has started appreciating the issue of going beyond what we see into the sphere of ultimate beneficial ownership when we're investigating money laundering. Your Excellency, also in terms of trying to standardize how we deal with money laundering and terrorism financing offenses, we have developed a parallel financial investigation, ML and TF tool, that is being used by all law enforcement. That's precisely DCI, ESCC, Asset Recovery, KRA, and KWS, and they're dealing with the predicate offenses related to money laundering. And that in itself now is able to put all of us on the same level in terms of how do you investigate money laundering. Whereas probably KWS will look at a poacher in the Savo National Park as an ordinary poacher. If you are to carry out parallel financial investigations, you'll be able to get up to the financial of that particular predicate offense. There's also the issue of regulators and law enforcement having increased number of supervision and enforcement of staff since the onset. Government are really putting a lot of resources to improve the quality of enforcement and supervision, and that meant that we had to increase the numbers across board. Again, out of the terrorism financing risk assessment, we have developed a standalone counter-financing of terrorism strategy that provides a specific approach on how we strengthen counter-financing of terrorism. And lastly, Your Excellency, on the issue of proliferation financing and the issue of us complying with our United Nations Security Council resolutions, we have made designations that relate to terrorism financing and circulated to persons and entities required to take action without delay as required by the UN Security Council resolution. You must have seen this in the papers, I think twice this year. The last one, 3 weeks ago, when the IG of police had to designate a few people who we strongly believe that they are supporting terrorism financing in Kenya. The next steps, Your Excellencies, is that we submitted our post-observation period progress report to the FATF on the 17th of November 2023, and basically highlighting all the actions that we've taken to address the deficiencies, of course, including both the technical and the effectiveness side of the assessment. We are looking forward to the 7th of January, when we'll be required to discuss our findings and the measures that will be taken with the Financial Action Task Force Review Group. This will happen in Abu Dhabi, where in our region we'll have 11 countries defending what they have done to address those deficiencies. And the outcome of this discussion will inform the next steps. Either there'll be an enhanced monitoring by the FATF, and that's a realistic part of it, or we'll just have to go through the normal follow-up in which those areas that have not been adequately addressed will be handled by the regional FATF-style regional body, that the Eastern and Southern Africa Anti-Money Laundering Group. Based on the interventions by the authorities, we anticipate that the reviewers will give us a favorable verdict in terms of the progress we've made, given the fact that we had the highest number of recommended actions ever recorded in the history of FATF, 107. And the irony of this was that the FATF allows a progress report not to go beyond 100 pages. So Dr. Amolo, you are doing a thesis of 107, you condense into 100 pages. This is historical. It was a challenge, but I strongly believe that as a republic, we've played our part to ensure that we address all those deficiencies. And this is basically a demonstration of the commitment that the government, through His Excellency, the President, and his deputy have put to ensure that we don't lag behind in terms of addressing all these deficiencies to secure the global financial system as well as our obligations to FATF. And in conclusion, we are not doing this because of FATF. We are doing this because, one, as a country, we need to continue improving on the aspect of AML CFT for three cardinal reasons. One is to secure our own country and the future of this country. And secondly, to safeguard the integrity of our own financial system as well as a global financial system. And lastly, to create a conducive environment for investment and economic growth. Thank you very much.
Let's give the DG another round of applause. Because of time, I want to believe that we've taken note of the steps that FRC, of course, under the leadership of the National Treasury and the Ministry of Interior have undertaken to get us to where we are. And of course, we'll be looking forward to the outcome of the update on the 7th of January. And I want to believe that we will not be grey-listed as a country. I think for me, what we need to probably take home is how low the ratings were, and the fact that we have a very high-risk profile as a country, given the region that we are in, and of course, given how advanced our economy is. Then, of course, there is an issue of enforcement, which we need to take a lot of keen interest in. I know there are a number of questions or issues that we might want to raise based on that presentation. I would want to ask that we note them down, and depending on the guidance of His Excellency, the Deputy President, who needs now to take us through the next steps together with the co-chair. Is that? So, Jen? Okay. So I hand it over back to the MC to take us through the next steps. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much to the Speaker and to the Principal Secretary, Dr. Raymond, for the moderation. Your Excellency, we are now moving to the last session in our program today. I kindly request to invite on stage His Excellency Ambassador of the Kingdom of the Netherlands, Martin Brouwer. Let's give him a warm round of applause as he comes on stage.
Thank you so much for giving me the floor again. I just want to raise a point here that's very much linked to the next, and that is the items for the agenda for the Development Partnership Forum and for all the partners to discuss in the coming period. And I want to give some special attention to the point of strengthening support for resilience. Why is that so important? Well, with the experience of the ongoing droughts that had a devastating impact on the community and livelihoods in parts of the country for the last 5 rain seasons, as well as the current impacts experienced from El Nino, I think it's quite evident that building enhanced resilience should be at the core of our cooperation at the national and at the local level. It really deserves our attention. As we know, for the coming decades, it can be expected that Kenya will remain on the front lines of extreme weather events caused by climate change, posing severe consequences for lives, livelihoods, and the journey to achieve sustainable development goals and leave no one behind. We have heard this morning C.S. Ndungu on the question of how disruptive the impact is of shocks on the economic growth potential. And that's, I think, a warning that we should take at heart. This, therefore, calls for a strengthening of readiness systems, both to mitigate and adapt to the anticipated impacts in the humanitarian domain. But more importantly, it underlines the vital need to strengthen long-term resilience building of livelihoods at risk, of at-risk communities and economies, particularly those in the SL counties. So we must look beyond immediate relief and search for sustainable solutions. Only in this way, resilience may be strengthened. While some progress has been made to improve readiness, delivering some positive results, the question is how can we cooperate to achieve even better? And in that regard, we have identified some obstacles that may have to be addressed for more effective help building resilience on the ground. And those obstacles include the lack of proper risk governance and risk management. And another obstacle is that disaster governance architecture at the subnational level needs to be strengthened. That's where high rates of poverty, combined with pressures on and competition on scarce resources, and the threat of radicalization sometimes come together, resulting in low adaptive capabilities and increasing vulnerability of individuals and communities. Another obstacle is that we're seeing underperforming partnerships between government, communities, development partners, knowledge institutions and the private sector. A better performing partnership should allow for improved joint coordination, locally led planning and integrated approaches to address climate-related hazards and shocks. It should make best use of existing local knowledge, data and information to unlock economic, humanitarian and development nexus opportunities. Finally, preparedness and prevention of climate-related hazards and shocks, and resilience building in particular, require a shift to apply more intentionally climate risk analysis and more flexible funding modalities from development partners. With that in mind, I would like to solicit maybe some feedback on the challenges and the opportunities, as I just identified, from the government, as well as from the Council of Governors and developing partners, to see how such challenges can be overcome and what type of flexible funding could help to strengthen support for resilience in Kenya. Building resilience is not something that falls under one ministry or one department. There are many different ministries and organizations involved. And that is why we think it is so very important that we make sure that in the work to be done in the next couple of months, we will have the different joint working groups to focus on the issue of resilience and what is the contribution they can make. And my plea would be that we would have a meeting somewhere in February, if possible, in which we bring all those issues together and we come to a plan of how we can attack the lack of resilience of the population in Kenya and try to really strengthen that resilience and come to a situation in which the shocks that will appear will not hamper or affect the underlying economic structure and social structure as much as it has done in the past. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Your Excellency, I humbly request to invite on stage the UN Resident Coordinator, Stephen Jackson, to present the agenda and calendar for the next DPF. A warm round of applause to Mr. Stephen Jackson.
Thank you. Not quite as tall as Martin. Tallest people in the world, the Dutch. Excellency, thank you greatly for giving us so much of your time. We are already now looking at the next time we can prevail upon you in the format of this development forum, partnership forum, because this was just a beginning. Let me start by identifying what it seems to me as one of your co-chairs are a few quick elements of next steps, then turn to the calendar, and then we have a long-promised opportunity for people from the floor to intervene, to pose questions on what was said, but I think we might fold that into a conversation about the rolling forward agenda for the forum. So, very concrete next steps. We will, as promised, be sharing all of the presentations from today, the PowerPoints, the background papers, and so on, with everybody. And so, as the moderator already said, very important to fill in that registration form. We will also be organizing a session, Excellency, with your Secretariat to introduce them to that data portal that shows that OECD data, and then we'll be working with your Secretariat to try and expand on that and have included on it the activities of those who aren't within OECD. Then, as Ambassador Brouwer has just said, we had envisaged, I think, with you that we would have between 2 and 3 meetings a year in any 12-month period of this forum. So certainly with a fixed point of the next such forum or a major meeting of the forum happening probably in May. But I think also, as His Excellency the Dutch Ambassador has noted, there are enough substantive issues already on the table from today that we haven't had an opportunity to finalize, that it may be, if your calendar will permit, that we should also be looking for an earlier opportunity to drill, have a topic-specific meeting earlier, perhaps February. Ambassador Brouwer has pointed out that we can come back to you with some concrete proposals on the resilience thematic. And given that you also have humanitarian affairs under your watch, that's where humanitarian and development come together, is around resilience. And so I think that that would be very appropriate. The second, given the urgency of what we've just heard about anti-money laundering, it may be that as early as February, it might be good to have another update on that. The third, and I think, P.S. Kipto, you put your finger on it, this issue of non-absorption and what collectively we can do about it. Kenya needs help, but Kenya also needs help to absorb the help it already has, if I can put it that way. And so that seems to me to be a very important topic. So those would certainly be 3 that I would see: resilience, a return to the anti-money laundering question, and the non-absorption thematic. But with your leave, Excellency, now might be the moment, triggered by what was a very long session this morning and a very rich one, just to take a quick poll from the participants about other big ticket strategic items that would need to be part of the rolling agenda going forward. And I think we have a roving microphone. If I can invite you, of course, to be very brief, but if there are big ticket items that you think that this forum could usefully address in subsequent meetings, now would be the moment to say so. Does anybody want to break the ice? We can also follow up, and we will, of course, with an email asking you to do likewise. Swedish ambassador here in the front, if we have a roving mic. Yep, please. Top table there.
Your Excellency, Vice President, and CSS, PSS, all colleagues here present. Thank you for allowing me to share just two reflections from my own head of operation and myself on today's exercise. And I think this is our questions that we are asking ourselves, as well as we are asking our Kenyan counterparts. And that is when it comes to private sector and these value chains. We are heavily involved in that. We have been supporting Kenyan agriculture since independence, and the last 12 years, I think, we have been involved in developing the agriculture value chains. What I ask myself now, or we ask ourselves when we see the program on developing the value chains, is a bit on the private sector's part of this, and how we can help to stimulate both national private capital to come into these value chains, and also, of course, international private capital. Because I think that is needed. I think we all realize that a vibrant economy, and CS Ndungu pointed to that, is fundamental to improve the financial health of the government as well. That is where the money comes from, there's where the growth happens, and I feel that otherwise we get a bit into social engineering here, and I think it's very important to have the voice of the private sector actors in such discussions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. And it reminds of another theme that has come forward quite strongly today, which is around public-private partnership more generally, and where I think there was a feeling in the meeting that not as much has been achieved through public-private partnership over the last decade as Kenya either wishes or needs. And so that also is a topic we might look at the strategic level. Looking around the room to see if there are other... Okay, no requests to intervene beyond that from the Swedish ambassador, but we have, I think, a list already, a rolling agenda of perhaps 5 topics: public-private partnership, private sector and value chains, the non-absorption challenge, anti-money laundering, and a return to resilience. And here, just as I begin to wind up, Excellency, I want to pay tribute to the support of 2 individuals who haven't been mentioned yet, and that's the heads of cooperation of the European Union delegation and the head of cooperation of Italy. I can see Irene there. Irene, thank you very, very much. And I've lost sight of Luigi. Yeah, okay, had to leave. But we will be working very, very closely, Excellency, with the heads of cooperation to prepare these topics as we bring them to your table. I think it's really important that we bring these items to you in a way that actually helps us shape decisions that can be acted upon. So we'll be working very, very closely together. I think, Excellency, for me, at least, that would do it for the next step. So if we can loosely mark on your very, very busy calendar 2 dates in 2024 already, one in the early spring and one just before we go into the European summer. And we will by then have worked hard on shaping some of these thematic topics. And then the other thing that we will work hard on, particularly with the assistance of our heads of cooperation and working with Jane and the excellent secretariat, is to give you reporting that is more results related rather than just the raw numbers. And so we'll look forward to doing that together. So with that said, I don't know, and I'm looking at my co-chair now, does it fall to me to offer the vote of thanks to you, Excellency? That is an extraordinary amount of time that you've given us out of a very, very busy calendar. Last time I checked, I think your job description includes helping His Excellency the President run a country of nearly 60 million people. So to spend 5 hours with us, as you've done, is no mean thing. I think it is testament to your appreciation and Kenya's appreciation of the quality of the partnership that we have already. Looking around the room, you have representatives here from every continent, here because they care to help you continue and His Excellency the President continue and the Kenyan people continue this extraordinary project of Kenya's upwards development. We don't take that for granted on our side as international partners. We're very, very grateful to you for the quality and indeed, as I've just said, the quantity of the partnership. So on behalf of my co-chair, Ambassador Brower, myself, and all of the development partners in the room, asanteni sana.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stephen Jackson. It's now with great honor that I invite on stage the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua, for his closing remarks. Karibu sana, Your Excellency.
Thank you very much. Please be seated. I think I want to take this opportunity to thank each and everyone in this room for your time, your commitment, and for those who presented, for the quality of the presentation. The presentations were very informative and very enriching. And I thank all of you for supporting the launching of the coordination unit in my office to coordinate matters around international partnerships. And I am sure that this unit will add value to our programs, to the projects, so that what was planned and expected is done efficiently for the benefit of the people of this great country. At Jane Karangai, this unit will be a very busy unit, and it's one of the busiest units in our government, given the huge component of donor funding in this country. I want to invite you to engage this unit within the structure and also on ad hoc basis. We have set a full-fledged floor in Harambee House Annex, 6th floor, with staff, equipment, and all other facilities, meeting rooms, conference rooms, teleconferencing facilities, to make it easy for us to engage with our partners. This unit will unlock bottlenecks where they exist. There has been challenges when things take too long in the National Treasury. They take too long in the Office of the Attorney General. All these will be unlocked by this unit to make sure there is efficiency in coordination and getting things moving. I want to encourage our development partners where there are issues. The government alone coordination unit that our chair with the Prime Cabinet Secretary will meet once every month to unlock whatever challenges are there from the presidency so that we can make progress. So I really want to thank all of you for creating time the whole day to come. For me, spending 5 hours is not even enough because this is one of my 9 functions that have been given by the president and is part of my marking scheme. So I am still, I have to work on it because I'll have to be given some marks at the end of it all. The chair of the Council of Governors has made some recommendations, and I agree. We need to make sure that we bring them in because of the various projects that are funded by the donors, and I think we need to bring them into the framework so that we can be able to work together and even enlarge the representation. So I really want to say asanteni sana, and maybe because I've seen my younger sister, the chair of COG, has come. I had talked before you came, and I've just seen your statement about El Nino. It's good. I had explained that when we met here, we did agree that the partners will look for funds, the national government will look for funds, and the county governments will mobilize resources within their budgetary provision to intervene in the respective counties. And all this money we applied within the coordination framework that the governors and the county commissioners chair in our counties. We did not agree anywhere that we'll give money to the counties for El Nino. So we want to make a clarification that whatever money the national government will apply will come from our end, from our part of the shareable revenue. And we expect the county governments also to look for resources within their allocation from the shareable revenue and from their own source revenue, so that we understand each other. What we have agreed to do as a government is to give logistical support where county governments are able to mobilize resources for food, medicine, blankets, and other interventions. The Kenya Defense Forces will provide aircrafts to take this food to areas that are not reachable because of the situation that we are in. So we encourage everybody to mobilize resources within their space. Even ourselves as a national government, we didn't have a budgetary allocation for El Nino. We are mobilizing resources within what we had already planned to remove here and there to get some money for this intervention. And we encourage the county governments to do the same. So I just wanted to make it very clear that there is no money the national government will allocate to the counties for El Nino. We encourage them to mobilize resources within what they have to intervene on behalf of the people that they govern, and the national government will do the same. We are looking at allocations within our ministries, our departments, and see where we can get some money to mobilize for this emergency. Again, I call for our development partners to continue supporting the El Nino mitigation so that we can be able to help our people in these very difficult circumstances. We had the military, they had come here to make a presentation on resilience, but we did not get time. I will encourage that you share with our secretariat to share with everybody else. And I'm sure when we meet next, we'll put you in the agenda so that you can make that very important presentation. We are available for a meeting next week, next month, February, May, whatever. We are here we are available, so if you think that we need to have a meeting in February, my office is ready, we are available. If you want another one in May, whatever, we are available, because this is very important. The donor portfolio is very critical for our country's development, and therefore we must create time to be able to work on it. With those very many remarks, I want to wish you a good afternoon, and I want to take this opportunity to welcome you for lunch in the next tent. And I want to encourage you to take time to informally engage. I would like to request the ministers and the PSs to locate partners who have something to do with your department or ministry and share the same tables so that you can get to know each other and discuss further issues of concern to you. I would like to encourage the partners also to mingle with government officials so that we get to know each other formally and continue engaging. Finally, you are always welcome here. This should be your second home. Please don't be in a hurry to leave. We have enough refreshments. It's only we don't have a place where you can sleep, so by 6 you can leave. But between now and 6, you are welcome to stay around and continue engaging so that we also develop friendship, continue working on our relationship, continue growing areas of mutual concern to the two parties so that we become better people and we are able to make progress. And with those, asanteni sana.